Tim Fitzgerald does a great job covering not just Kansas State, but many things, college athletics and sports. GoPowerCat.com. And Tim joins us on Sicem 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Tim, I know the press conference with Coach Tang is Thursday. Obviously, you've heard a lot maybe from here on what those at Baylor. Scott Drew was on today with a Zoom, and what a lot of us have said, his assistants, et cetera, former players. Thank you for your time, by the way. What has been the reaction in Manhattan, Kansas?
People couldn't be happier. And let's set the backdrop here. People were really set on Brad Underwood coming home. And I know that Kansas State made a push. You know, he's one of the highest paid coaches in college basketball in Illinois, but he's a former player. A Jack Hartman protege came up through that and coached under Frank Martin before heading out into his own career. And that was the guy. That's the guy everyone wanted. But as it became clear that it wasn't going to work, the numbers are so massive. A program like K-State honestly can't pull that off. But they gave it a shot. It all focused immediately on Jerome Tang. He rose out of the ranks of, everyone does their hot boards. And there was Chris Jans and, Grant McCaslin, another Baylor guy. But there were so many good young coaches out there. But it just came back to Jerome Tang. There was something about him that felt right for Kansas State. And I got to be honest, brother, every time we get more information on Jerome Tang, it sounds like even better fit every step of the way. And fans, I haven't seen fans this fired up and this united at Kansas State in a very, very long time. It's pretty cool.
How much do you kind of feel lucky that this was the job? I mean, he's had opportunities in the last couple of years and pause. I mean, UTEP got really far down the road last year.
Yeah, I think what K-Staters appreciated isn't just the fact that he picked them, like it was the kickball team. He picked them. It was the fact that he said he understands K-State's basketball history. Because so many college basketball fans don't understand the incredible legacy of coaches at Kansas State. Jack Gardner, Tex Winter, Cotton Fitzsimmons, Jack Hartman. Then you kind of skip over, you got Lon Kruger and Dane Altman. Then you skip over a couple guys and get Huggins and Martin and Weber. It's pretty incredible. That's the post-World War II history, except for Tom Asbury and Jim Moldridge. And he kind of understands that, and he appreciates Bramlett's Coliseum, and he appreciates the tradition and the underlying importance of basketball in Manhattan that has been dormant for so many years. So I think that really gained him a lot of affection in Manhattan, that he kind of understands the culture that he's now joining.
Tim, where do you kind of see the program as far as what kind of shape it's in, not only in terms of the roster and what you know of it right now, and of course because of the portal and everything, that could change dramatically in the blink of an eye, but what is Jerome walking into in terms of the roster and also in terms of things like facilities and support and those things?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. We know that there's some players on this K-State team, but they're typically not the kind of players that Tang and Scott Drew would have picked up at Baylor. I mean, they're undersized guards in Nigel Pack and Marquise Noel, but they're going to fit in early. It'll be fascinating to me to see how much of this roster he turns over, because the portal is such a big part now, and we're also seeing some recruits pop back on to the market with other coaching changes. So he's got a lot on his plate. He'll be introduced, Thursday at noon, and I hope to hear some more about, who's going to be on his staff, and they need to get going. Because I think Iowa State has proven that you can turn it around awfully quickly. And that's a lot to ask, because the program the last 3 years has stunk. It really has. This year was the best of the 3 years by far, and they still finished ninth in the conference.
Armstrong, by the way, I just sent you an email. It was an image of a T-shirt that's on on Tim's timeline. We'll put that up in just a second. When we do, Tim, I'll get you to react to it as well. This is awesome. The Scott Drew tree, with McCaslin, North Texas, Matt Driscoll, Northern Florida, obviously with Paul Mills, the run they made at Oral Roberts a year ago, and now Jerome Tang. And I do think that you kind of get the feeling that he'll bring somebody with him, whether it's somebody that will help with operations and or as an assistant coach or both. Anybody on staff you think that will be there again because they know where all of everything is inside the building?
Yeah, that would be Shane Southwell, former player. He was recruited under Martin, played mostly about half and half under Weber, but then came back to coach under Bruce Weber and has learned a lot from Weber. How's that an interesting two coaches under whom to play? You can get more radically different styles than Martin and Weber. Shane's a young guy, really bright, I never saw him as a head coach until he came back and I saw him operate, and I'm like, this dude's a head coach. But I did a video at Go Parket. I do daily deliveries about 5 times a week. And, I'm all for Shane staying. I hope he gets to stay, but that's completely up to Jerome Tang. He's the only one that gets to decide that. And I honestly don't know if Shane provides a bridge to the current roster. You just never know what these kids are thinking. But, we've gotten mixed messages that he's got so many guys that he wants on his staff. For a guy that was at one school for 19 years, he knows a lot of people in the profession, and that speaks to how well liked and respected he is. But we've also heard that Shane will indeed stay. We'll see what develops.
Do you think that there are players that would, you mentioned that what Craig asked you, what he's walking into the roster. Do you think that there are players that will leave? Just because, as nice as Jerome is, he's not the guy they came to play for.
Right. And there always is. And that was really the downfall of Bruce Weber basketball was there was always overturn. He went back-to-back recruiting classes, the classes that predated Nigel Pack and Davion Bradford and Selton Miguel, the group that will be juniors next year. Both of those recruiting classes are empty. They're gone. So that's really where the downfall was. So there's been a great deal of overturn at K-State previously, so it won't come as a shock to anyone's system. And honestly, there's some guys that don't belong here. They don't belong at this level. That was also another failing of Bruce Weber. He ended up taking a lot of chances, and he ended up with some guys that were projects, but maybe just too big a project to actually function on a game-to-game basis in the Big 12.
Tim, Adrian Martinez is now at Kansas State. And if you don't mind, Baylor starts their spring drills today. I don't know the timeline of K-State's already started or about to start, but obviously they have people back from last year's team and Kleiman and what he's trying to build. Your thoughts about what's going to happen there?
Well, it's an interesting fit. There's now 3 former Nebraska players on this K-State roster. And it won't surprise me if after spring football wraps up at all these schools, they pick up another guy. So Adrian Martinez seems to fit in really well, with one exception, the fact that he's injured, still recovering from a shoulder surgery, and isn't really participating in spring football other than those infamous mental reps. But it sounds like he's fit into the locker room, and the receivers are saying you can't believe how well he knows the playbook after showing up, at the start of this semester. So that's a really good sign. It's also a sign that K-State needed a bridge between Skylar Thompson and the young quarterbacks. They got some pretty good young quarterbacks in the system, coming into the system in the next year or two, but they weren't there yet. And Adrian provides a great deal of leadership, and it's going to keep some defensive coordinators awake at night thinking about Adrian Martinez and Deuce Vaughn in a backfield together. Mm-hmm. K-State should be pretty good. If they solidify the middle of the defense, particularly the interior, get some more depth at defensive tackle and some safeties, maybe added in with the portal here late, it's going to be a pretty good K-State team for Chris Kleiman.
Tim, I thought that it was such a good marriage of the two, and that Scott Frost had gotten everything out of Martinez that he was going to get out of him, and whatever new ideas he would have had for him were kind of come and gone and used in that, and they weren't the place for him. And the kind of guy I would want is someone who kind of has a box set of rules for what he expects from his quarterback, like Chris Kleiman.
Yeah, and Adrian came in. He sounds like a pro. He's been through this a lot. There's a lot of media attention in Nebraska, so he's handled that. Guys, it helps that his girlfriend plays soccer at K-State, so that might have been a recruiting advantage K-State had over everyone else, because it was kind of a no-brainer where he was headed. This is a really good addition, not just X's and O's and wins and losses, I think, for the culture of K-State football.
I'm a part of the Earl Campbell, Tyler Rose Award, helped put stats together for that, honoring the best D1 player from the state of Texas. And Deuce Vaughn was one of the finalists this year, being from down in the Austin area. I just haven't talked to him before. I can't, have any bigger, positive remarks. And I know that the folks who dealt with him and Tyler felt the same way. What's it been like covering Deuce Vaughn the past few years, and what kind of an ambassador do you feel like he's been for K-State?
Well, if his dad gets tired of them, I'll adopt him. He is a wonderful kid. He's such a great young man, and he's a great lesson for all of us. Don't let people judge you by your literally shortcomings.
Yeah.
Just be the best you can be, because he uses that to his advantage. We saw it against LSU in the bowl game. He did some things that shouldn't be physically possible. He reminds people a lot of Darren Sproles in these parts, but he's actually smaller than Darren Sproles, which is incredible in itself. Deuce's greatest asset is off the field. He is just a wonderful guy and been mature beyond his years from day one, playing as a freshman and handling all the media and just being a champ. He's a good kid.
There's an image, you put it up, Tim. You retweeted Lance, I think it's Pufall or Pufall. What?
Yeah.
Here's a shirt that's already available. Put it up if you don't mind, Armstrong, on the screen. It, of course, the color purple, Tang Gang. There you go. I mean, it just like that, and you could on the Twitter. I'm going to retweet it as well, and so it'll be on my Twitter feed. So, yeah, this is fun, and I'm telling you, as much as you think you already like him, wait until you get a chance to hopefully have a chance to work with him. As far as cover him, you're going to love him, Tim. I know you are.
I want him to cook me a meal.
Yeah.
This is something new. And we also have part of the K-State sports Twitter right now is the assistant football coaches are having cook-offs with ribs and, it's unbelievable. And I want to get Coach Tang involved in that, and I want to be a judge. I think I'm qualified for that.
I think you'll have a hard time picking who's got the best, but he can do it. David Kay, he's the I guess, associate athletic director for media communications, mentioned that he had surgery. And Coach Tang had learned how to cook during COVID, called David's wife and said, what's his favorite dessert? Key lime pie. He goes, he tried one. He didn't like the first one he made another one, took it to the K house, and David said it was probably the best key lime pie he had ever eaten. So he even does dessert, which is not good for calorie intake, but at the same time, you guys are going to love him. He's the best, I'm telling you. Thanks for your time, Tim. Appreciate it, and good luck.
Thank you, boys. Appreciate all you do covering the Big 12. You were incredible during the whole realignment expansion thing. And I have talked more about Baylor sports in the last 6 months than I ever imagined I would.
Thank you. Appreciate you. And we will continue to do that, locked in with K-State. And Tim, always great to have you on the show. We appreciate you and also the comments on this show, number 500. When we come back in the 4 o'clock